Assalamu alaikum, hi and welcome to the first session of Islam, the Past, the Present and the Future. I'm just going to start off by reciting a verse from the Quran, and I'll tell you what it means. It's actually written below, but أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم لقد كان في قصصهم إبرة لأولي الألباب. Now, Islam and religions are very interesting because what you'll find is that in the religious scriptures, most of them are composed of stories. And in the Quran it's mentioned that in these stories are lessons, and these lessons are for those of understanding. And so Muslims and the people of spirituality are people of reflection, the people that reflect and ponder over these verses and ponder over these stories. And history is useless. You know, history is something that we study, but in actual fact it's useless apart from its lessons. From those lessons, what you extract and what you can implement into your life, and that improves you as a person, that is what counts. And in history, everything happens for a reason. Everything is preordained, and this is our belief. This is the Islamic belief of this is within our creed of Qadr, basically predestination. Everything is predetermined, and so everything happens for a reason, and time is the best of teachers. And this is the notion of doing analysis, retrospective analysis, so looking backwards. You know, looking backwards is where you get your actual learning from. So even as a PhD researcher, most of the PhDs will tell you it's not whilst you're doing your research or whilst you're writing your thesis or even when you give your viva, your actual learning comes after you've done all that, after you reflect on your journey. And so Islam and religions and spirituality and your spiritual journey, the patterns are exactly the same. Now, moving on. Now, yesterday I mentioned a few concepts in the background session. Growing up as a Muslim, we are taught that Islam means submission, or it means peace, or if you combine the two, it means submission to attain peace. And yesterday I also mentioned that Deen is a way of life, and the word fitra is natural disposition. Now, a lot of people, if they were to ask me what Islam meant even a year or two ago, I would struggle to explain it because, you know, it could mean anything from various perspectives. But for someone who spent 10 years almost 10 years, every year sitting in I'tikaf, which is spiritual retreat in the last 10 days of Ramadan, not only that, spending time with, as I mentioned, the Tablighi Jamaat movement, it would spend times in places of worship, in the mosque. I could share with you what natural disposition meant. I could share with you what natural disposition felt like, what spirituality felt like. And so I could tell someone how they could attain spirituality, and this was something that was seen in Sufi scholars of the past, even Rumi when he met Tabrizi, where they would go into the jungles and retreat from society. And this is also something in Surah Al-Kahf, which is mentioned when you retreat from society and you spend an extended period of time in isolation trying to connect with the Creator, and then you come back into society, your normal life, you are able to intuitively tell what is right and what is wrong. And so what you've actually achieved is natural disposition, right? And so when it comes to Islam, I would struggle to tell people what Islam is, but when it would come to spirituality and what it would feel like to be in a spiritually high state, so to speak, I could tell them because I'd experienced it. And so these are some terms that I wanted to re-emphasize and clarify. And so my definition of Islam and Deen has changed with my perspectives as time has evolved. And what I consider Islam to be is Din al-Fitr, so the natural way of life, that was established from Adam's time, Adam and Eve, and the other 128 prophets that came. And in Islam, we believe Muhammad to be the last and final messenger, prophet and messenger, and I'll just clarify those differences in a while. And so this is what we believe Islam to be, and this will be my definition, my take on what I have considered Islam to be after all my experience and exposure. And so one of the key questions that arises is, if Islam means peace, right? And there's this project peace, that there's this one God, and then as Muslims we're taught there's one God, which is the concept of Tawheed, and there is one message, and there was always one message, and there were 124,000 prophets. Okay, so as a scientist, researcher, we could call them as data points or milestones for us if you look at it historically. And then more than that, there were followers, right? So something for me, as someone who would use my left hemisphere of my brain, I could not comprehend how it's logical that you can have so much data, because as a researcher, and this is a researcher secret that I'm sharing with you guys, you can only draw a conclusion based on you need minimum 3 data points to draw a conclusion. If you've got 3 data points, you can make a conclusion. Okay, less than 3 data points, you cannot make a conclusion. With 3 or more data points, you can make it, and the more information you have, the stronger your correlation, the more accurate your results analysis and your results and your conclusions will be. And so with so much data available, and you know your beginning and you know your end, the destination is binary, heaven or hell, how is it that just in Islam we can have 73 variations? Now it begs the question, where have I got the 73 from? And what is 124,000 prophets? So, and what is the difference between prophets and messengers, like I've mentioned? So essentially there were 24,000 prophets, which we would call Nabi, and there were 313 Rasul, which were messengers. What is the difference? A messenger is someone who came with a new system, or a Sharia, or a law, a rule of governance, for various reasons. Either those nations went astray, or they were wiped out. And so to reinstate a system, a Rasul, a messenger, was sent. So examples include Moses, examples include Jesus and Muhammad. And not all prophets were messengers, but all messengers were prophets. And this is the distinction between 125 and 124,000 prophets. In the poster for this event, or this project that I'm sharing with you, the information that I'm disseminating with you, I had written 124,000 messengers, which was actually incorrect, and I've corrected it on this slide. So I'm not infallible, right? I make mistakes. And so I've corrected it on the slides for those that may have been confused, and those that were our scholars and picked up on that mistake but were too kind to let that mistake go. The scholars that are listening, you must correct me. You have the right to correct me, and you should correct me. And on that note, I have a dear friend with me who I'd like to introduce, who will be joining me along this journey, who is Hafiz Asad. So Hafiz is someone who's memorized the Quran off by heart. He's someone that went through the madrasa system in Pakistan, but he's someone who I've got great respect for, because he studied his chemical engineering just like myself abroad from Loughborough University. He's now working at one of the top institutes in Pakistan known as LUMS. And his role essentially on this journey, he's been asking me, so he's been part of the Academy of Champions, and I've had the honor, and I've been really blessed to share my whatever knowledge I've had with him. And he was asking me to share this presentation with him for a while, and I've only had the opportunity, well, I'd planned to do it in Ramadan because I was caught up in other stuff. And so now that things are materializing, he will act as a cover for me in any Quranic mistakes I make, because he knows the Quran off by heart and I do not, and that is my limitation. But also he will act as a representative for the youth, because the youth not only in the West have confusions which I am more familiar with. I know that there's a lot of confusion with the youth in terms of Deen and Islam in Pakistan that has infiltrated our minds over time. And so this is something that I also want to clarify, and he will act as someone who will be writing down questions, and he's got full freedom to ask me questions and interrupt me whenever he wants, and to make sure that I am clarifying things. So I'll ask him, is there any questions any so far?
I just had, two questions.
Yeah.
One was, you just mentioned that I will explain how we can achieve spirituality. So I was just wondering, I mean, I can ask this question later on when you explain that. And I was just wondering, whether there was only one message, and what was that message? So I was just writing it down.
Okay,
Questions
okay.
later on.
That's fine. That's fine. So both of these I will answer, because one of them actually I will answer tomorrow. The one on spirituality and how you can attain spirituality, you spent some time with me already, so you might know. But the thing is, the actual and how. So you know what? I will touch on that today. The details and specifics I will not cover in these 10 days. The topic of so the branches Taskiya and Tasawwuf, which there are sheikhs and all this, and I've also mentioned yesterday that I do not believe in sheikhs, so having given bay'ah and pledging some spiritual allegiance, I would prefer, the path that I prefer and the path that I've learnt is that you go in search of knowledge and you go in search of the creator. Okay, you get your knowledge from whoever and wherever you need to in order to connect to the creator. This is the path that I adopted. I went to people like, I'll mention a few names now, Sheikh Kamaluddin Ahmed, who's from Lahore. Okay, that is a leader in Tazkiyah and Tasawwuf. There's Sheikh Salim Ahmed Dorat, based in Leicester, in UK. I've not studied formally under both of them. I listened to what they had to say. I took from them what I needed to. They believe in this bay'ah and learning and spending time under them and this, but I do not hold that opinion. Those that are the students I have great respect for, and those that want that to take that path I have great respect for, and you should take it if you feel that that's what you need in order to connect to the creator. I am not of that opinion. My opinion was more inclined towards other routes, such as focusing on Tawheed, focusing on amal, good actions, focusing on strengthening your iman, eliminating your fears, focusing on fitra. This is the way that not only was something that I saw in my granddad, and something that other scholars verified, that I went to even Professor Slim Hassani, um, and this was something that was seen in other Muslim scholars. So, for example, in this day and age, we have very narrow minds. Why do we have narrow minds? Because we are like polymaths. Polymaths were personalities that were studying various branches of knowledge. They weren't refined to, okay, we were just, what we do is study some basic chemistry, biology, maths, and then you become a medical doctor or you become an engineer. Polymaths studied astronomy, they studied medicine, people like Ibn Sina, all great personalities that have been mentioned in the 1001 Inventions book. Ibn Haytham, all these, and actually in Lums, funnily enough, you've got them all mentioned. You've got Fatima al-Firi wing, you've got Ibn Sina, you've got them all, they're all mentioned,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But the sad thing is not many people know about them.
That, yeah. That's very true. They
Right.
don't know the history.
They don't know the history. They're just empty slogans used as, okay, we've got some Islamic heritage, but no one teaches this. How many polymaths do we have in this day and age? If you're a polymath, you're considered as crazy. Right? What you have to, now it's a matter of, and I'm digressing and I shouldn't be doing this, but because you raised the issue, I'll address it. So what we need broader personalities. We need to respect personalities that have broader opinions. it should not be a one-way show that you basically go through this set, railroad. Yeah.
I mean, what you're trying to say, there's so many ways you can connect to God.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I got it. Yeah.
And so anyway, on that note, the other thing I'll mention from Sheikh Simon Dorat and for his student that I'm listening, and mostly the students that I knew were actually from a Bangladeshi origin, and they would not appreciate the depths of the Urdu language. There's something Allama Iqbal, who we're blessed to, his resting place is in Lahore. He mentioned नक्शे कदम नबी के हैं जन्नत के रास्ते अल्लाह से मिलाते हैं सुन्नत के रास्ते. Okay, so the footsteps. Yeah, Sirat al-Mustaqim, but Naqshe Qadam Nabi ke hain Jannat ke raaste. What does that mean? The footsteps will get you to Jannah, but on those footsteps of the Prophet that you followed, although they will get you to Jannah, they'll get you to they'll get you to paradise. Allah se milate sunnat ke raaste. The way of the Sunnah is the way, but that way has multiple shades and variations within it, as was illustrated by the Sahaba's lives. They were not monomaths, they were also polymaths. They were diverse, dynamic personalities. And so anyway, we'll come back to this because we could spend a full day on this, but this is something that I'll answer as we go along. None of you, so there's a hadith, and I mentioned for those the non-Muslims that are listening, so something that Muhammad ibn Abdullah for you guys that he mentioned was, none of you truly believes until he loves for his brother what he loves for himself. And so as a child growing up, and as a youth then in the West, learning these things but then not being able to make sense of these things created a lot of confusion in my mind. As a Muslim, we're taught one God, one message, 124,000 prophets, and all these more than that followers. And as a scientist, I could not, as someone who studied maths also, I could not understand all this. How could we have so many variations? Where did 73 variations come from? 73 variation comes from another hadith, so hadith I will elaborate on as well today, which is essentially a saying of the Prophet, that in the Jewish and the Christian faiths they will have 72 sects of division and divide. As Muslims will do one better, we'll go to 73 sects and variations, right? So 73 was for Muslims, 72 for the Christians and Jewish faiths. Now, and so from minimum we have 73 variation sects. That's what we know, that's what's given from the Prophet. But the key thing is this: if everything starts, we know the beginning, we know the end, how can you have so much discrepancy in between? How can you have so many variations? How can you have so much confusion? How can you have so much chaos? And not only that, in the age that we have been raised in, especially in the West, where we'd seen so much bloodshed, and not only did this not make sense to me and my little mind as a kid, someone born in 1990s, this also didn't make sense to the angels. When the Creator created the human being, the angels questioned. They said, "What sort of creation is this? And you claim that this is the best of creations?" They cause bloodshed, right? And we've witnessed this: Muslims killing non-Muslims, Muslims killing Muslims, innocent women and children being killed, Muslim and non-Muslim women and children being killed. What sort of peace is this? Project Peace? What sort of peace is this? What sort of religion or way of life is this? Right? This is the question it created in my mind, my little mind as a kid and a child after September 9/11. Okay, this is the question that has been programmed and plugged into a lot of you can say immature minds, the youth that are now amongst us. This is what is causing the core conflict and confusion in our minds. What sort of religion is this? Another thing, as much dawah activities are happening and as much Islam is being accepted, there's as much people leaving Islam as well due to these confusing matters and confusion that have arisen in our minds. So anyway, in 2016, something had really cranked up the heat on me and had increased the confusion to an extremely new level within me. And for reasons that I will explain later, and it's something I will definitely share with those that are listening, I thought I was going to throw everything at solving this problem. You know, every tool that I'd learned, all the knowledge that I'd acquired, I thought I was going to solve this problem. And so, for those of you that will be joining me in the Academy of Champions, these are tools that I will not be addressing in these sessions because they're not. I don't feel that they're necessary for the average person to get deep into. But I will mention them for those that want to go and study them, that are keen students of knowledge. And the tools that I believe that you can use to solve any problem. And if I can solve this problem, this is an age-old conundrum. If I can solve this problem, you can, and I can bet you can solve any problem. These are the tools that intelligent agencies such as CIA use, and I know this, to solve the most complex problems. So if I can use this to solve this problem, they can use it to solve their problems, the most complex problems in this planet, then you can use it to solve your problems. I can guarantee you that, right? So what are the tools? Firstly, degree of freedom analysis. This is something I learned in chemical engineering, right? Chemical engineers know that. It tells you whether something is possible or whether something is not possible based on the data information that you have, right? Based on the data information I have, what we can solve is possible, right? Second tool, Bayes' theorem, tells you to what extent something is possible or not possible. Okay, so and I won't go into details. Those of you that will join me for the Academy of Champions leadership, advanced leadership, these are the tools that I go into depth because I believe that advanced leaders need this. My philosophy in teaching is that I don't want to give people fish, because if you give man fish, he'll eat for a day. If you give him a fishing net and teach him how to fish, he'll eat for life. So my philosophy is to give you these tools and you solve the problems yourselves. The next tool is product lifecycle analysis, which is an amazing tool. It's not people don't really use it as an analysis tool, but it can be used that way. They use it more in the business area, but it gives you essentially a continuum. Then you've got Simon Sinek model, which gives you the depth of understanding, and then you've got balance equations, which give you flow. And using these tools, 1, 2, 3, 5 tools essentially, I believe you can solve any problem. Any problem. These are essentially the tools that I've used. Okay. Now, before I get into detail, I want to highlight something. This is more particularly for non-Muslims. In Islam, we use the word Allah, Ilah, Rabb. In the English language, when it's translated into, well, in the English language, you refer to things as God or Lord. Now, this creates confusion and chaos also. This is something I realized. The reason is, and the non-Muslim friends that are close to me, especially those that work on bioenergetics and know me and my perspectives much more broadly, know where I'm coming from. Essentially, the actual translation or should be that to a sustainer or a cherisher or a master or a nourisher. Why is that the case? Because Islam is a monotheistic religion. It believes in the concept of Tawheed. Tawheed is one source, right? It's about not associating any partners to this one source. The words God, the words Lord induce discrepancies. Okay, God, goddesses, or gods. Okay, lords. But when you use terms such as a nourisher or a master or a cherisher or the one source or the creator, these are not as ambiguous terms. People realize that everything has a source. Every lake has a source, a river. Every river has a source, a sea. And therefore every soul must have a source. Everything has a source. And so for the purposes of this work, although I've used God in certain places, slowly but surely I'm phasing out the words God and Lord from my own vocabulary. And I'm going to be using the word one source, which is less ambiguous and more understandable and connects you to the creator much more readily. Where did I, and to give you more details actually, for the seekers, for those seeking the truth, the word God, as I learned from Dr. Leonid Sharaskin, I think that's how you pronounce his second name, based in Russia. He works on essentially projects that bring people towards fitra, although I think he has more Shamic beliefs. Anyhow, he's someone that I learned from. That basically he shared the fact that the word God is actually a pagan word. It has pagan origins, which actually means time. And as Muslims, we know that God cannot be time, as from the chapter Al-Asr, Wal-Asr, the Creator takes an oath on time. Time is a phenomenon. So if God was time, he would not be able to take an oath on, right? And so I want to encourage the youth, and especially the non-Muslims that are studying with me, that to try to phase out and try not to think of things as God, as the God that you know it, or as the word God, or Lord, okay? Try to think of it more, even from a scientific perspective, try to think of it as one source, okay? Or the creator, and the rest is creation, okay? Distinguish your creator from the rest, right? This is something that's important. This is something that creates a lot of confusion. This is something that I feel is very important to address at this early stage. The other key aspect is sectarianism. Now, a lot of people have, will take to me or take against me on my stance that I do not believe in sectarianism. What is my dalil for the ulama? What is my evidence for the rest of the people? What is my benchmark? So Sheikh Kamaluddin Ahmed once asked me, Sheikh Zayn Mahmood has his Sufi Institute, we ulama have our institutes. We have our Coke. What is my Pepsi? What is my Coke? What is my foundations? This is what he questioned me. And my answer is this to the ulama and non-ulama, so this is scholars, non-scholars, for the non-Muslim, for everyone. My foundations are the following. رضيت بالله ربا وبالإسلام دينا ومحمد صلى الله عليه وسلم نبيا ورسولا والقرآن كتابي. What have I mentioned? I have mentioned, these are 4 questions which I'll come on to, that will be the first question that will be asked to you in your grave. That I've taken Allah as my Lord, the one source as my Lord. رضيت بالله ربا وبالإسلام دينا. I have taken Islam, the natural way of life, as my way of life. رضيت بالله ربا وبالإسلام دينا ومحمد صلى الله عليه وسلم نبيا ورسولا. I have taken Muhammad as my prophet and messenger. والقرآن كتابي. And I've taken the Quran as my book. These are my yardsticks. This is my benchmark. Okay? I don't know which Quran you guys are following, right? In the Quran, I've given you 2 dalil here, evidence that God says, do not split amongst yourselves, do not break up religion into sects, right? Do not divide amongst yourselves. This is in Surah Al-Imran. This is not something that I fabricated, okay? And so this is the evidence for the stance that I have. I'm happy for you guys to have your stances, but we do not have to pick up boxing gloves, okay? We need to base on, there's enough animosity as it is, you know. But now we need to focus on love and tolerance and patience and unity, not only between sects. We need to come to common ground. There's enough bloodshed as there is. If people want to go down that route, I'm happy for them to go down that route. I don't want anyone associating anything with me going down that route. Okay. Anyway, so you've got 2 points of evidence, right? One is Surah Al-Imran, and the other one you have in chapter 6. In chapter 6, again, both of them in Surah Al-Anam, both of them are clear, crystal clear as daylight. Do not break up into sects. And for those that have broken up into sects, you have no part with them in the least. Okay? And so when it comes to division, divide, sectarianism, I am against it. I'm someone who is focused and dedicated on unity. And that is my stance. So anyway, on the poster that I had, it mentioned that there are 4,300 religions. Someone mentioned to me, where have I got that from? And that has come from the research of Dr. Stephen Yuan. I do not know his full background. But he is someone that has done a PhD in anthropology. So he's an anthropologist from the University of Sydney. And he had come to the conclusion that basically there are 4,300 religions and there are 6,800 languages. Which is mind-blowing, you know, because now if we take, and so what is the correct methodology? So to analyze things, and this is something that will be in my book that's going to come out at the end of this year, inshallah. Creator willingly, the one source willingly, Allah willingly. That the correct methodology to conducting analysis is that first you do a macro analysis, then you do a micro analysis. The scientists, the doctors have got it wrong in the last century or so or more. The 20th century and a bit before that. Where they were, people like Tesla were polymaths, right? Then we divided into, just like we divided into sects, we subspecialized and specialized even deeper and deeper and deeper. And we based on micro-analysis, we lost in touch of the macro-analysis. Anyhow, the engineers and entrepreneurs analysis is much more inclined towards the truth, and it's no surprise that they are higher performers. An example, modern day example, is Elon Musk. Okay? Anyhow, coming back to spirituality, religion, and this presentation, Islam, past, present, and future. If we have 4,300 religions in this world at present, let's look, and you've got the name of the largest 20, okay? Let's just focus on macro analysis. Let's look at the largest world religions in order. Christianity, 2.1 billion. Islam, 1.3 billion. Hinduism, 900 million people. Buddhism, 376 million. Sikhism, 23 million. Judaism, 14 million. Right. Of these 6 main religions on this planet today, if I go down the list, Hinduism, pacifist. Okay, appears to be a peaceful religion. Would you agree? Yeah. They're not really creating much bloodshed. Apart from some Muslims that are killing India with Modi and etc., which will not bring politics in yet. Buddhism, peaceful people, right? Sikhism, in general, if you ask someone in the West, right? In the West, they're inclining towards Hinduism, right? They're inclining towards Buddhism and Sikhism, right? there seems to be something peculiar in the 21st century in that people seem to be running away from Christianity, Islam, and Judaism. People of the book, people that believe in this one source and of this thing about faith and prophets and angels and this sort of thing. You know, there seems to be a movement towards secularism, and it's very interesting that most of the bloodshed seems to be from Christianity and Islam. This one message and this peace message and these amazing personalities like Jesus, Isa alayhi salam that was sent, Moses and Muhammad, people preach peace, this one message, and they were basically the flag bearers. And so here's the question. Either there's something wrong with these three religions, right? Or there's something wrong with the rest. And there's something that's being done to make these three religions, which have a uniting, more than a uniting factor, which is that three of them are Abrahamic faiths. So we all believe in Abraham. We all believe in Ibrahim alayhi salam. Right?
Yeah.
What bloodshed did Ibrahim alayhi salam do? So the main commonality between religions causing trouble in this, is that the Abrahamic faiths all believe in Prophet Abraham, who did not believe in bloodshed, apart from when he was ordered to sacrifice his own son, which is then replaced by a goat. Right? And that is where we get this tradition of the big Eid from, Eid al-Adha. But again, what does it mean? It means that they have gone astray. We have gone astray.
Yeah.
That's the only conclusion.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking about. Yes.
Musa alayhi salam, which bloodshed did he do? Isa alayhi salam. Did these guys present? Did they promote bloodshed? Did the father of the three promote bloodshed? Did Adam promote bloodshed? Did David Solomon promote bloodshed? If none of them promoted bloodshed, and there is bloodshed being witnessed in these, then the answer is that we've gone astray.
The messages we are receiving now are not pure, maybe. Are not
pure. Yeah. I mean, here's the thing. I'll come on to this as well. This will be more. I'll deal with more on why we've gone astray, etc. And religions have gone astray tomorrow in tomorrow's session. But the key thing that I just want to clarify here is, what are the main differences between these religions? Okay, so, and again, one thing I got a bit, you can say my emotions towards rage and anger increased a bit more in the last sectarianism, because we have so much sectarianism, which I'm not a fan of, and I believe in unity. But on this matter also, I believe in unity. Okay, but in order to understand, but the key thing is empathy. You know, all I mentioned this to you when I met you a few days back, that despite the list of scholars that I gave that I'd met and sat with, etc., and spoke to, and each one tried to entice me into their own way of thinking, I resisted. Okay, I held my ground because I believe I'm a man of my own. I have my own mind and my own opinions. The point that I was getting to was that even in these faiths, right, people preach hatred, but the reality is that that is far from the truth. You know, if the thing was to cleanse people of faiths, then you would not have found a single person of a Jewish or Christian faith in Medina. If the reality was that the aim of the game was to eliminate and eradicate people of other faiths, then when Umar radiallahu anhu took over Jerusalem, he would have made sure that there was no other place of worship. The first person he would have killed was the priest that gave him the keys, the very keys into Jerusalem. Right? So the aim of the game is not cleansing faiths. And I can go on this for a long time as well, but I'm going to wrap this up. Okay, the thing that our scholars have got wrong on this subject matter, as far as Muslims are concerned, is that there are not 1.3 billion Muslims on the planet. I hate to say it, but this is wrong. It is a lack of understanding from your part. What is my dalil? What is my evidence? For non-Muslims, this figure may be true, and actually it is true. May be true because it has to do with the interpretation of who is a Muslim and what is a Muslim. But coming back to why this figure is definitely not true for Muslims is because as Muslims, and Asad will testify to this, we are told that everyone is born on fitrah, everyone is a Muslim till the age of puberty. True or not true?
True.
True, okay. Therefore, how many Muslims are there on this planet? It is 1.3 billion plus everyone that is not balig, so has not hit the age of puberty. This is the demographic data that you take and then you extrapolate and add on to the 1.3 billion. Therefore, the Muslims far exceed anything on this planet. Right?
Yeah.
And therefore, you cannot kill children as they are all innocent, they are all Muslim.
Yeah.
I hope that makes sense. I don't know if I can't make it much more clear. And I cannot give you much more dalil than these are fundamental Islam. And the whole point of today's session is the fundamental of Islam that no one, I don't care how big a scholar you are, no one can refute these points of evidence that I'm giving. Why? Because they're from the Quran. Why? Because they're from the Sunnah. I am not going to go into Sunnah whether it's daif, whether it's mutafakun alay, whether it's mutawathir, and what is the chain of narrations. That is your job. That is the ulama's job. I'm not a qualified alim, just as I'm not a hafiz. That's it here to back me if I go wrong. The Islamic scholar's job is your guy's job is to prove me wrong if I'm wrong, right? But it'll be very difficult for you to do that. What you'd have to do is prove that what I'm saying is right. And most of the scholars that I'm referencing have sanads to the Prophet. Okay, so what you guys need to do, the scholars need to do, is although I'm not giving the mutawathir or da'if or mutafakkin alay, your job is to get those hadiths because I know they exist, right? I've not plucked them from thin air. They've come from scholars with sanads. You need to extract them and send them to me. We need to work together. We need to come onto the same page. Right. Let me come back to uniting faiths, this triangle. What are the main differences? Okay, I worked with these Dawah organizations. Okay, Jehovah's Witnesses would come to me, to my house when I was in the UK. I was part of the main missionary movement in Islam, the Tablighi Jamaat movement, so I know their perspective. I helped organize IERA events, which are the main, I would say, body that does Dawah. There's also people like, I read literature from Sheikh Ahmed Didat, okay, who was the teacher of Dr. Zakir Naik, who is people know for his intellect and his speeches and Peace TV. My era, Abdul Rahim Green, organizer went for him at British Muslim Heritage Centre in Manchester. Right, so in the Dawah field, I'm not a master and an expert, but I know the basics, and this is what I'm going to share with you. The main differences, according to what I picked up on. The three faiths, Islam, Christianity, and Judaism, are Abrahamic faiths. Okay. Here are the discrepancies. There are 2 out of the 3 faiths that believe in the concept of Tawheed. And this is something that Abdul Rahim Green shared when he was on his journey to accepting Islam. Okay, he mentioned that there were 2 faiths, so he studied a lot of faiths because he was on the search for the truth as well. Okay, and he said that there were only 2 faiths, and he was a Christian, so his background was as a Christian. And he said that there were only 2 faiths that believe the concept of Tawheed, that there is one source. And those faiths are of Islam and Judaism. Okay, 2 faiths. Christianity, the issue was that they believed in the concept, and they believe in the concept of Trinity. The Father, Son, the Holy Spirit. They believe Jesus to be God. Right? Where does Islam then conflict with Christianity? Or the difference is that we believe in Tawheed. We believe that Jesus was a messenger and a prophet. Okay. So in terms of commonalities, between, so let me talk about the commonalities. So I've mentioned the commonality between Islam and Judaism. Is Tawheed. Okay. Now, when it comes to the commonalities between Islam and Christianity, we have commonalities. Our commonalities are when when Jesus came, the Muslims accept Jesus came. The Christians accept he came. They accept the concept of Virgin Mary, that it was a miraculous birth. Okay, we have a full surah on that, Surah Maryam in the Quran. Right, we believe that he came and he was the Messiah, he was the Messiah. We believe that he will return. Right, we believe in the return of Isa alayhi salam, the return of Jesus. These are the commonalities between us. Okay, so Islam has commonalities with Christianity, and it has commonalities with Judaism. Okay, now what is the conflict with Islam and Christianity is the fact that they do not believe in Tawheed. Okay, now what is the conflict with Judaism? The conflict with Judaism is that they rejected the fact that Jesus was Jesus' mother had, and Jesus was basically a miraculous birth. They accused the mother, so the Virgin Mary, of essentially adultery. That's the accusation that they threw at her. And they are still waiting for Jesus. They're waiting for the Messiah. And so that is where the conflict is with the Jewish faith. So we've got commonalities and we've got division and divide, and Islam, and this is the beauty of Islam. And I'm not just saying, I'm saying this even as a neutral. Islam is the only religion that accepts Jesus came, right? And also accepts Tawheed, the one source. It is the only one that has the ultimate uniting power. Right. Okay, there's other things that I was going to mention, but I think I will skip. Because actually, you know what? This is for the youth, so I'm going to mention it. Those of you that are following this New Age movement, okay, that are saying that are towards atheism and just this universalism and all this sort of stuff. Firstly, I'm a fan of these movements. Let me say that. Why? Because at least they're using the intellect. Most people are blindly following like sheep, right? But here's the thing. You have to know and you have to acknowledge, and this is my message for those. For example, let me give an example of an organization, Mind Valley, right? Someone who I listen to and I learn a lot from. Why? Because they're doing something that what Muslims have been ordered to do are not doing. At least they're thinking and reflecting and trying to understand the world that we live in. This was also something that the Prophet instructed: to reflect, to meditate, to contemplate. Even that there is a narration, and I think this is actually a weak narration, but it is a narration that is used quite a lot, is that it's better to spend 1 hour meditating and contemplating than one narration is 60, the other narration is 70, and another is 1,000 years of voluntary worship. Right? Why? Because it gives you the insight, it gives you the wisdom. Okay, which is what we're lacking. We've become machines. You know, now you read the Quran from cover to cover, and this is where I agree with Sheikh Imran saying, you know, you read it cover to cover, you recite in the Taraweehs, there's no impact. And actually, so I don't want you to take an offense to this because I'm going to show you a Hafiz as well, but I want to share the correct methodology that the Sahabas had when they memorized the Quran to what it's become now. Okay, at the Sahabas' time, the Quran was memorized 10 verses at a time. Okay, they would read 10, they would try to understand the 10, they would contemplate over the 10, they would reflect over the 10, they would bring the 10 into their lives, then they would move on to the next 10. That was the recipe to become walking, talking Qurans.
It's gone now.
It's gone now. You're the one from this side.
I know.
I've spent time in. I've had dealings with Madrais and Madrasa systems, and I've picked up on that. But you'll have a much more accurate idea. And you see, this is where we've gone wrong. And so, from these New Age movements, there's a lot to be learnt. But what I will share with you is that do not lose your fundamental core. Come back to your foundations and try to understand from your scriptures. And this is why I've given this slide, and I'll tell you the correct methodology you need to use for a New Age movement. And this is very important, I said, for yourself and people in LUMs and these institutions that are becoming more secularized day by day. I'll teach you the correct methodology that I learned. But the New Age movement, people like Mind Valley, I've got great love and respect for. The thing is that my message for people that have gone to those extremes is that religions cannot be fabricated. Come on, you guys like to use rationale. Okay, how can it be that things that have been there for thousands of years, how can you turn around and say religions are fabricated? Religions are not fabricated. Spirituality tied to religions are not fabricated. Okay, what you can say is that just because you cannot understand them, that is a limitation in your understanding, not in the way of life that has existed for centuries. But here again, I extend my arm out, and I'll be working with these institutes, and we'll be coming to commonalities. We'll be looking at trying to better understand things. And this is the correct thing. Try to do things with reason. Anyway, what's the correct Quranic methodology when it's linked to science? And the funny thing is this, no Maulana ever taught me this. You know where I learned this from? My PhD supervisor, Dr. Arthur Garforth, who again has his own opinions on matters, but anyhow, when I was learning catalytic reaction engineering module 3, which I also then ended on being a teaching assistant for, Dr. Garforth once mentioned in his lecture, he said that science has its limitations, so question it. Okay, this is a Western scholar, academic secular scholar, you can so speak, meant saying this. Most people are not scientists. Most people do not even have PhDs, and most people do not have lab-based PhDs. Okay, lab-based PhDs are, you can say, the top end of PhDs because you go into the micro-analysis and then you have to pull it up to the macro-analysis. Okay, the amount of and great personalities, great scientists of the past, of Albert Einstein, you could say, and even Chaim Weizmann, who I may or may not mention if I get time, but again, a big personality in the last century. But anyhow, the reason why science, a true scientist knows who's worked in the lab and has worked at a micro level knows how limited science is. We know that you carry out one experiment, you control as much variables as you can, then you try to repeat it and you can't repeat it. Although you've tried to limit as much variables as you can. And so you realize how limited science is. The rest of the people that are not even scientists, that watch the TV 24/7, right? Do not get off their sofas, spend nine hours in front of the TVs, playing on the game consoles, etc., etc. They use science as their benchmark. And so, something I learned from a Jummah khutbah in Manchester was this is the correct methodology. And actually, by the way, I was at a conference last month. Last month. And I met a fellow Christian, well, a fellow bioenergetic practitioner who's basically Christian, had a Christian faith. And he'd come to the same conclusion as myself. You know, these scriptures do not have limitations. The science has limitations. Right? And so this is the correct methodology. If something is in alignment, and this is for the Muslims, if something is in alignment with the Quran, we accept, you accept, you do not question. Okay? Whether you understand it or not is your limitation, the limitation of your knowledge. If something is in conflict with the Quran, we reject, you reject. Direct conflict. So there's some finding that comes out and it blatantly conflicts with the Quran. We reject. End of. Okay. If something neither is in alignment nor in conflict with the Quran, neither do we accept nor do we reject. Example. If we go back a second, Buddhism came prior to Christianity and Islam. Was Buddha a prophet?
I'm not sure.
He's not been mentioned in the Quran, right? But someone like Dr. Zakir Naik, who's way more learned than me, he will tell you that according to he'll tell you basically that according to their scriptures that he basically mentioned about some golden figure that would be coming. He was prophesying about Prophet Muhammad.
Yeah, I heard that lecture.
Yeah, you've heard it. Yeah, exactly. So there are evidences. To suggest it.
Yeah.
Right? But it's not in the Quran. So neither do we accept, but nor do we reject.
Yeah.
Okay? Sikhism and Guru Nanak, etc. That's different. Why is that different? Because there was not going to be a Rasul after the Prophet. There was not going to be another. Prophet ﷺ was the last messenger, and okay. The other thing that I was going to mention is the power of the Quran and the power of these holy texts. Dr. Zakir Naik often mentions, and this is actually something that I'll share. So he mentions that the book of the Quran is not a book of science; it's a book of signs. I disagree. Okay, the book of the Quran. This is something I learned from Maulana Habibur Rahman from Glasgow. Okay, who is a qualified scholar. Who, as far as I remember, he studied in various places, but also Bari Darul Uloom he's got links with, and who does have an ijaza and does have a sanad back to the Prophet ﷺ, unlike Dr. Zakir Naik. Okay, so Maulana Habibur Rahman was once asked, he was asked something technical, can you get something technical from the Quran? It was something either like a health related thing. Can you extract this information, something scientific from the Quran? And he said, and his answer was yes. He said you can extract anything from the Quran. The caveat is that you would have to read the entire Quran with that intention, with that perspective in mind. So like Maulana Rumi mentioned, what you seek is seeking you. So you'd have to be seeking that thing, and then you'd have to read the entire Quran with that, and then you'll get your answer.
Yeah.
Okay, and
Makes sense.
so the Quran is a book of science for a scientist who knows complete science. And then you have to read the entire Quran with the science, and then he'll be able to extract.
Mm.
Now, Dr. Zakir Naik is a medical doctor. He is not even a scientist. I come from a family of medical doctors, and I know limitations of medical doctors. Medical doctors are brilliant at Ritta system. What is Ritta system? No, so the terminology for someone who's great with memory, learning big terms. Okay? In terms of critical analysis, in terms of actual core science, it's very weak.
Mm.
And so, this is where I disagree with Dr. Zakir Naik on this subject matter. And this is where my stance is with the Quran. And this is where the formally qualified scholars were backing. Oh, Maulana Habibur Rahman. Okay, now moving on. Fundamentals of Islam. A lot of people question, what does it take to be a Muslim? So what is a Muslim? Okay. When asked, again, a lot of Muslims don't know where to begin. What is it? What is a Muslim? Right? So essentially, and by the way, I've taken these diagrams and a true academic references these, and I apologize if I've not referenced them because I created them quickly. I did not plan on presenting them so abruptly, and I've not had a chance to reference all these, and so I apologize. And for those that want to be reimbursed or any way I can contribute to your work, please let me know. If there's any copyright issues, etc., etc., etc. I'm more than happy to cooperate. I did try to get these reproduced. I didn't. Well, it didn't work out. But anyway, back to subject matter. Fundamental of Islam. How can I be a Muslim? To be a Muslim, essentially, you need to be willing, and this is on consensus. So this is something that, regardless of the sex, regardless, we're all the scholars, everyone is at a consensus, right? And this is why this session I'm giving you the fundamentals. Firstly, willing to perform 5 pillars of Islam. What are the 5 pillars? Firstly is declaration of faith. To believe in no creator, one source, nourisher, but Allah, and that Muhammad is his prophet and the messenger of Allah. Secondly, prayer, to pray 5 times a day, each day. Fajr, Zohar, Asr, Maghrib, Isha. Okay, the 5 prayers at 5 ordained times. Payment of zakah. Okay, there's fasting as well, so we'll come on to fasting. So this is the month of Ramadan. Okay, so to give up food and drink during daylight hours in the month of Ramadan. So I'm presenting this as we speak in Ramadan. Ramadan is a blessed month. Fasting is as it says, not refrain from food and drink, and also there are other conditions that you have to abstain from. So performing fast in Ramadan, the 1 month, and performing Hajj. Hajj is a pilgrimage to Mecca at least once in a lifetime. For those that are able to afford it, that's the condition. Believing in 6 articles of faith. What are these articles of faith? These compose essentially. These are your core sets of belief. Firstly, in Allah, that there is only one source, that there is only one creator. Okay. Next, in the concept of angels. And for those that think angels are these hairy fairy, it's a bit out there in this 21st century, let me just say this. These are the same people that will be happily watching Leonardo da Vinci's Angel and Demons, or reading his stuff. They will praise da Vinci's work. If people like da Vinci can believe in angels and demons, in Islam we've got the concepts of jinn and basically malaika, angels and demons. So people like Da Vinci, who were beyond any scientists I can think of today. You know, if they had come to those conclusions, then all I'm going to say is that it's not a ridiculous phenomenon to believe in. Okay. Anyhow, holy books, which I'll come on to, and prophets, Judgment Day, predestination, like I mentioned. So essentially, we believe that everything was written and preordained 5,000 years before the creation, and before what you could say Big Bang, but again, we'd have to go into much more detail. Before creation began, everything was pre-written, preordained, and so what we're actually going through is a simulation. Um, Again, that's a very interesting area, which I may touch in the future. Well, actually, I will touch, inshallah, in the future. Say declaration of faith in Arabic, and all you say is Ashhadu la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadur Rasulullah. And then that's it. And so this makes you Muslim. This is it. It's not much more than that, not much less than that. This is it. This is it. One key thing I want to point out here is that there is no jihad. Jihad. Okay? There's no jihad in the fundamentals. To be a Muslim, you don't need to do jihad. Amazing, isn't it? And people focus on jihad to become a Muslim. Right. 20. So in the Quran, there are 25 prophets mentioned in the Quran. And we believe in 4 holy books. And there are some major archangels which we have commonalities with. So I'll mention them in the Christian faith. So out of the 25 prophets, Adam, Ayub, Job, Dawood, David, Zulkifl, Iskil, Harun, Aaron, Hud, Ibrahim, Abraham, Idris, Enoch, Elias, Yasa. I think I'm gonna. Alicia, I don't know. Isa, Jesus, Ishaq, Ishaq, Ismail, Ishmael, Lot, Muhammad, Musa, Moses, Nuh, Noah, Saleh, Shu'aib, Suleiman, Solomon, Yahya, John, Yusuf, Joseph, Yaqub, Jacob, Yunus, Jonah, Zachariah. Okay. So here's the thing. We have a lot of commonalities. Christianity, Muslims, there are a lot of commonalities. Why do we not focus on these? 4 holy books. Again, faiths. Torah. The Torah, which was revealed to Musa alayhi salam, Moses in Hebrew. Okay, on Mount Sinai. 1,500 years approximately before Isa alayhi salam, before Jesus. Next book, the Psalms, Zabur, the Psalms revealed to Dawood alayhi salam, David alayhi salam, basically is, we say, out of respect, just like Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, peace and blessings be upon him, right? For the non-Muslims listening, the Psalms was revealed in Hebrew as well, so 2 of the books were revealed in Hebrew. Psalms was revealed in Jerusalem 1,000 years before Jesus. Injil, which is the gospel, so we don't actually believe in the Bible. The Bible is a set of compilations. Okay, and even the Sheikhs, and Salim Doraz, Didat, I've forgotten. Sheikh Didat from South Africa, Dr. Zakir Naik's teacher. He even mentions these books were not physical books, right? What these were actually transmissions sent from the Arsh, the throne of Allah, to these prophets, and then these prophets were transmitting them to the people. So these weren't physical books, right? These are physical, and so what we believe were the physical words that then came out, these messages that were then relayed to the people, which was the gospel, the Injil, which was in Aramaic. The language of Isa alayhi salam was Aramaic, okay, which is in Galil. The Quran, Prophet, which was revealed to Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam in and the chosen language for that was Arabic, revealed in Mecca in 620 approximately AD. Okay, again, of the things that make a Muslim, the prophets are there, the one source. If you, well, Muslims, we believe in it, and if you believe in it, the books are there, right? And you cannot be a Muslim. A Muslim cannot be a Muslim unless he believes in all the prophets, unless he believes in these books that are in Hebrew, that are in Aramaic, and the prophets. And he cannot be a Muslim unless he believes in Gabriel, Raphael, Michael, Israel. And in Arabic we call them Jibrail, Israfil, Mikael, Israel. And then Gabriel, we believe, is the basic archangel of revelation that brought these revelations down to the prophets. Raphael, Israfil, will be the angel that will be responsible for blowing the trumpets towards the end times. Michael is the angel responsible for the nourishment of the body and the soul, brings mercy, rain, and thunder to the earth. Israel is basically the angel of death, Malakul Maut, I think. Right, so I think you had some question.
No, I'm just.
Alright, you're just making, okay. Right, I'm going to quicken things up. Okay. And again, so and this chart just again, this is not my work, and I'm not going to claim it's my work. This chart just shows you the lineage of prophets. Again, for those that do not believe in religions, is this a fabrication? If this is a fabrication, what a beautiful fabrication! This is tough stuff to make, right? This isn't easy to just pluck out of thin air. And so anyway, this shows you the lineage of prophets, Nabi and Rasul, and I've defined the two. I've defined the messengers from the prophets, right? What distinguishes a prophet from a messenger? And so those that had revelation, a message, were Rasuls, and they've been highlighted. So again, you can see Moses, you can see David, you can see Muhammad, and you can see Isa, Islam, and these are the 4 books. And why I focused on these 4 books and not the others is essentially that these are what we are perceiving to be creating the problems. And so what we need to question is, are these really the root cause of the problems, or is the perception that we are being given the root cause of the problem? And our lack of understanding, and our lack of attempt at understanding. Okay, the other thing that is at a consensus that I would like to share before the last 2 slides, because we will be hitting iftar soon, so breaking of the fast here in Pakistan, is the fact that the Prophet's last sermon, again, you don't have to become a big scholar. Allah mentioned in the Quran, Yahdillahu li nurihi man yasha. Allah guides to His light whom He pleases. It could take just a verse of the Quran. And you hear people read stories, and you realize that sometimes it takes the tiniest of things, right? And their hearts just expand, and they understand the whole thing. Well, not the whole thing, but they have a very good understanding, even much more than the Muslims that have been born into Muslim households. Right? So key things that I just want to extract, and I get questions from the youth, and I want the youth to use this. Go to scholars if that's the way you want to adopt. No problem with that. If you do not have access to scholars, go back to fundamentals. Okay, this is something I would do as a research as well. Fundamental analysis. There's a reason why fundamentals are called fundamentals, because they are the roots, foundations. If a building has weak foundations, it will crumble. If it has strong foundations, it will not crumble. Okay, so go back to the fundamentals. And so one of the fundamentals, again, one fundamental that I eradicated was that of jihad isn't even a fundamental of Islam, right? So those that accept Islam, that are polarized, their minds are polarized because they become so desperate. Well, guess what? It's not even a fundamental Islam. Okay, so I've eradicated that. Other things that I'm about to eradicate. Okay, one thing, I'm not going to read it all list and give you all the things, so I've highlighted and made a few notes. So regard the life and property of every Muslim as sacred trust. Hurt no one, so no one may hurt you. Okay, the concept of what goes around comes around. Right? Hurt no one, so no one will hurt you. Okay. People will call this karma, whatever, right? But we don't. As Muslims, we don't believe in karma, right? What we believe in instead is Allah is Al-Adal. Allah is the just, right? From Asmaul Husna. Therefore, what goes around comes around. We don't believe in karma, but indirectly, we have the concept. Does that make sense? Yeah. Okay. Allah has forbidden you to take usury interest. Okay. And your capital, however, is yours to keep. You will neither inflict nor suffer any inequity. Okay. So usury is haram. Usury is, we see it everywhere. There's not been a decent Islamic response to it. Okay. Neither Islamic or neither anything from society. Everyone like sheep have accepted it. No one's really challenged it. The Prophet, this is from the Quran, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, has waged war against those that are involved in usury. Yeah. I don't know the verses in the Quran. I don't know if you can remember. Yeah, you don't know. That's fine. But anyhow, there is a reason why usury is forbidden. Okay? Scholars have justified it, and I mentioned mortgages are death contracts, according to Robert Kiyosaki, not according to me or some scholar, Islamic scholar, according to Robert Kiyosaki, the famous international bestseller of Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And the Islamic scholarship have said it's okay to buy houses on mortgage. Is there a shortcoming in the message, or is there a shortcoming in your understanding of the message? I think there's a shortcoming in your understanding of the message. I may be incorrect, but I think I'm correct. Because if the non-Muslims understand it, why do you not understand it? Anyway, beware of shaitan for the safety of your religion. For the safety of your religion, he has lost hope. He's lost all hope that he will ever be able to lead you astray in big things. So be aware of following him in small things. Okay. This is very interesting. The interpretation of this has been, and I may be wrong on this as well, so I may be wrong on this, I'll acknowledge that. Interpretation of this has been that focus on the small things. Okay? Because it's written, so beware of following him in the small things. Okay? But my interpretation has been focus on the big things. Why? Because if I look at the previous thing, it says, for the safety of your, beware of the shaitan for the safety of your religion. He has lost all hope that he will ever be able to lead you astray in big things. Okay, so if you focus on the macro analysis, the big things, which are not ambiguous, right, which he cannot lead you astray on, by default, the micro will handle itself. Right? I.e. Tawheed, i.e. Fitra, i.e. good actions, i.e. working on your Iman, the macro things. Can't lead you astray. What have we done? We have started judging people on the length of the beard. We started judging people upon the appearances. We started sectarian, all these divides that we have. That my way is the right way, everyone else is wrong. And like I mentioned, Allah mentioned in the Quran, يَهْدِ اللَّهُ لِنُورِهِ مَن يَشَاءُ. We as creation are not the ones to judge who the Creator guides to His light. For those that are scientists, know and understand light is a phenomenon, and Allah is actually giving us an example for those who reflect. Light is composed of a spectrum. A spectrum is a ray of, or has bandwidths, right? It's not mono. There are multiple paths for Allah to guide to His light. And so we need to judge less and perceive more and work on ourselves. Oh people, it is true that you have certain rights with regards to your woman, but they also have rights over you. Right, okay. Right. Labasun lahum. So basically, in the Quran it's mentioned, they, your wives, are your garment, and you are a garment for them. The beauty is, when I was studying this and I was on my naturopathy journey, it beautifully summarizes the concept of a yin and yang. If you look at yin and yang, they're pretty much garments for each other. They're complementary. That's what the Creator is implying. That you are complementary, right? And this thing about what we have now is we have gender equality happening. And we've got this gender equality movement taking place, right? And Muslim scholarship as well, they're asleep. Islamic scholarship is asleep. And so learn from secular scholars. And what is my dalil? Okay, so people are going to say this guy learns from the seculars. My dalil is from Sheikh Zia Mahmood, who also has a sanad. Okay, I attended his course on Hazrat Abu Bakr radhiyallahu anhu, and he mentioned that Umar radhiyallahu anhu, and who is Umar? Omar for non-Muslim listening. He is the 34th, if I'm correct, in Michael Hart's book, 100 Influential People, Most Influential People. He's number 34, and he was known as Amir al-Mu'mineen, the guy who basically the judicial system, the law of Omar is famous for, who created the first welfare society, right? But Umar, he studied a Christian king. He studied a Christian king. Someone who spent his time and he spent his life, not all his life, but a chunk of his life, with the Prophet himself, who the Prophet mentioned that there was, if, and this is the thing, if there was a Prophet to be after me, it would be Umar. Right? There will not be a Prophet after the Prophet, but if there was, then it would be Umar. So a person who is regarded in such high esteem studied a Christian leader on how to bring about a just kingdom, a kingdom based on justice, a society based on justice, a welfare system, then me and you can also. And this is my dalil. This is my evidence. Okay? And the person that you need to study the Islamic scholarship is John Gray. He writes on relationships. He will tell you what is happening. He will teach you. He will give you a lesson in Islam that like you've never had. But anyhow, the thing is with gender imbalances, what is happening is we have not been just to the feminine gender. We have to acknowledge that. Okay, we've not done justice. There has been oppression of the female gender. We have to acknowledge that. Why is that? I once discussed with Sheikh Zia Mahmood in this regarding emancipation of women, and he said to me something beautiful. He said, "Deal when men are no longer men, women will rise to take a man's place. When men are no longer real men, right? Women will rise to take a man's place. This is natural." And so when it comes to this gender thing, there's two things. What time are we actually? We need to quicken this thing. So okay, there's two things. Marriages are becoming an issue. Okay, in the West, marriages are becoming an issue. A lot of the youth come to me, can't get married. Why? Because the parents aren't agreeing. Why the parents are not agreeing? You've even got incidences where they're Muslims, but because they're not from the same nationality, then one is an Arab, the other is a Pakistani, or you've got issues where basically even you've got cases where someone's Pakistani, one's an Indian, and they're both Muslims. You've had cases even where the people of the book and the Malanas are not willing to read the nikah. Again, which book are you following? Five pillars of Islam. Focus on, and actually I'm going to, on the issue of marriage, because the issue of marriage is big. Okay. Maulana Tariq Jamil, again, a scholar, well-known scholar, he mentions, and I'm going to say this in Urdu because this is a very much Asian thing, and it's well reported in the UK, and the secretaries know about this, and the member of parliaments know about this. But anyway, the issue is forced marriages and etc. etc. Right? जिस मुआशरे में शादी मुश्किल कर दी जाए उस मुआशरे में जिना आम हो जाएगा. Okay, what I've said is in societies where marriages are made difficult, then adultery will become the norm. Okay, and this is my message for the parents. Do not restrict marriages, especially for those of you that are abroad. You have made an informed decision, a conscious decision to leave your countries and move to a different land, which is an open, free place where other nationalities live. If your child wants to marry someone of a different nationality, and for a Muslim, if you're a boy, you can marry a girl of a different book, as long as she's a person of the book. This is from the Quran, this is not me fabricating. You can. Other way, it does not work. And again, I'm not going to overrule that. Who am I to overrule the book? Right? So, and someone has asked me why it's not the other way around, and I've explained to them, but I'm not going to explain here. So it's a topic, an issue for another day. But key thing about marriage, if your children want to get married, get them married. If you stop them from getting married, they will indulge in zina, and the sin of zina will be error carried on forward onto you, because you shut the door, not them. They were willing to get married, they were willing to obey the sunnah. You're the ones that, because of your arrogance, pride, and ignorance, which are characteristics of Iblis. Actually, Iblis was not ignorant, he was foolish. So I'd say foolishness. You shut the doors of the sunnah, you will be accountable for it. Okay, so facilitate marriages. Do not, and this is one thing that was reiterated in itikafs, but people did not understand. Most people do not even sit in itikafs. And I've been really blessed to sit from a young age, from the age of 16 for almost 10 years. But the scholars would reiterate something. They would say time and time again, what is our notion? Again, I'm going to say this on the first and then I'll translate. Putter di pale job hoy, let him have a big bank balance, let him have a car, and then a house, and then he will get married. You know what happens? Those marriages largely end up in a divorce. The sunnah of marriage. Let the couple go through the thick and the thin that will create the bond, and then they will go through all the troubles and all the hardships thereafter. But when you get someone married who has everything, and then the woman comes in, she does not respect, she does not have the same, what's the word? Qadr, she doesn't have the same, she doesn't acknowledge the effort that's gone in. And so what happens is the relationship, one stumble in the road and the relationship falls apart. And then is it surprised divorce rates have hit 50% in the US? And the other thing is, people who have daughters, make their marriages simple. Do not have lavish weddings if you cannot afford them. If you can afford them, fair enough, have it. If you cannot afford it, do not take a loan and then you have to spend the rest of your life trying to pay off. Keep marriages simple. Marriage was supposed to be the most simplest thing. We've made it the most difficult thing, and then we cry when the children go astray. 5 pillars of Islam, right? So we'll stick to the 5 pillars of Islam fundamentals. Say no to racism, say no to nationalism, geographic boundaries, skin color, languages, nationalism. Do not indulge in capitalism and communism and all these isms and all these things. These are non-Islamic. Okay, and I'm going to read this with her because this is the last sermon of the Prophet is also known as the Charter for Humanity. All mankind is from Adam and Eve. An Arab has no superiority over a non-Arab. Okay, nor a non-Arab has superiority over an Arab. Also, a white has no superiority over black, nor a black has any superiority over white, except by piety, taqwa, and good actions. Learn that every Muslim is a Muslim brother to every Muslim, and that Muslims constitute one brotherhood. Nothing shall be legitimate to a Muslim which belongs to a fellow Muslim unless it was given freely and willingly. Do not therefore do injustice to yourselves. Okay? And this is my stance. This is my stance. People want to know my stance? This is my stance. Okay? So people, yesterday I mentioned that I do not believe in sectarianism, I do not believe in nationalism, I do not believe in racism, I do not believe in capitalism, I do not believe in communism, not even democracy, nor monarchy, not even imperialism. And people are wondering, what do I believe in? I'll tell you what I believe in. in the coming session, I'll tell you what I believe in. And so why is it? Let me make something clear. We're living in an age where there's so much divide and there's a lack of unity, and there's a lot of inferiority complex. But your faith should be derived in what is known as taqwa. Taqwa is often translated as God consciousness, or the fear of God. But I'll tell you what I've come to the conclusion. It is actually the fear of losing the love of the Creator, the one source. That's what taqwa is. Those that have experienced it know what it's like. Those that haven't experienced it should seek it. Right? The other thing is Day of Judgment accountability, end of prophethood. Prophet Muhammad was the last and final messenger. Again, his message: read, think, reflect, understand, and reason the Quran and authentic hadith. What is it? What the sayings? Read, think, reflect, understand, and reason. Reason well, therefore, O people, and understand the words which I convey to you. O people, no prophet or apostle will come after me, and no faith will be born. Right? So reason. We do not reason. We just read and off we go. We're just machines. Okay, we're just machines. We're waiting for I don't know what we're waiting for. Anyhow, Sunnah. Sunnah is the way. Okay, I mentioned this. It's the established practices, actions, habits, and routines. Okay, Prophet said, I leave behind me two things. Two things you need. Two things, that's it. The Prophet mentioned. He did not mention all these other things, that we follow now. What can I say, right? And this murid, pir, muridi, and all this sort of stuff that's going on. I leave behind me two things the Prophet mentioned: the Quran and my example, the Sunnah. The Quran we know, which cannot be changed thanks to people like Asad, that Allah is blessed with. Allah chooses the hearts of the Huffaz, right? And the Quran is a book that will be preserved till the last day and age through the hearts of the Huffaz, the people that memorize this. It's a miracle. They memorize this entire book off by heart. And so that is preserved, that cannot be changed. And the second thing is the Sunnah, the established way. And if you follow these, you will never go astray. Amazing. Amazing. You will never go astray. You do not need bayas. You do not need pir muridi. Amazing, isn't it?
Very true.
Who's saying this? Who's saying this? The Prophet. Is the deal saying this? No, these aren't my words. I'm only a guy who's been a chemical engineer and whatever the things that I've learned and does fundamental analysis. I'm a guy who just compiled information. That's all I am. I'm just relaying. And why do I feel like it's my job to relay? The next bit. All those who listen to me shall pass on my words to others, and those to others again. May the last ones understand my words better than those who listen to me directly. What does this mean? The quality of understanding of the Quran and the Hadith must therefore increase with time, not get worse with time. I mentioned in the background message, lecture, whatever you want to call it, yesterday, that the two narrations that knowledge will be taken away by the taking away of scholars. Okay, so yes, there will be less people that will be able to understand the message. Okay, although there will be less people to understand, the ones that will be able to understand it will be able to understand it much better than those before them. Our interpretation in general in the public is that, oh, Islam is degrading, the understanding is going, and it's becoming weak, the fitnas are coming, this thing happening, that thing happening, which is true, but what the Prophet said is the truth, right? The quality of understanding, right? Why? So what is the full truth? The full actual truth is this: the quality of understanding the Quran and these must therefore increase with time, even though the implementation and quantity of application may decrease with time. You see what the Prophet said, and this is the conclusion I've come up with. What the Prophet said and what is in the Quran is so true to the nth degree. Only if you understand. Only if Allah gives you hidayah. Only if you understand. They are true to the nth degree. And so what's the issue? The issue is we need to, and the bottom line is we need to work on our iman, our faith. I'm going to leave it here because it's almost time for iftar here, and we will carry on. I've missed 2 slides, but we will carry on from the end of this. So for those that haven't looked into this, those that are you Muslim, reflect and ponder over this. Those of you that are non-Muslims, read this and think over it. Think the perception that you're given through the media, etc., is that really Islam? Other than that, I would also advise you to go back to your own scriptures. Reflect on your own scriptures. Reflect on your own scriptures. Go back, seek the truth. See if you can. I don't even know if is the gospel in Aramaic available on this planet at this time. If there is, please get in touch. I would love to see it. If it is something like they're still around. Because most of when I was in the UK and the Christianity and all the Catholicism, everything that I had witnessed, it was English translations. Anyhow, go back to your own books, study what it is, and that, and stay in touch, because what I'm about to I'll go into much more detail. So what I wanted to do was give you fundamental analysis. Next, I'm going to show you where the confusions are, and we're going to debust the myths. And by debusting myths, we'll give you, inshallah, creator willingly, nourisher willingly, more insight as to where the confusion has come from, and it'll give you more clarity, and with more clarity will give you more energy, more drive, and inshallah more iman, which is faith. It will strengthen your faith, and let me tell you something, if you have faith, you have everything. And I'll end with this again from Sheikh Zain Mahmood, who shared this from Ibn Qayyim. Ibn Qayyim said that wasting time is worse than death, because when you're dead, your connection with this dunya, this world, is broken. But when you've wasted time, your connection with Allah, the one source, is broken. Now